Welcome back to the channel. It's been, what did we do last week? We did a full day of eating last week, so I hope you guys enjoyed that one. But we're back in the gym this week. New program, courtesy of Coach Dean, which is basically a bit of a resensitization phase to volume. So we had our kind of big off-season push where food came up, training volume really came up, and this period is kind of that transition between, I guess, off-season and moving into prep. So the basic idea of this training block really is a big reduction in training volume, in training frequency. So I've only got 4 sessions programmed this week with an optional 5th day if I want to do it. But the main rationale is we get really good at lower training volumes. We get nice and strong because volume isn't crazy high. And then that gives us a little bit more of a runway as we get into prep to potentially increase training volume, which certainly has some favorable outcomes for body composition. But it's just a nice way to kind of get rid of a lot of fatigue that we accumulated over the last 6 months, arguably, of this push phase, so we can kind of get into prep nice and fresh and have a pretty productive contest prep phase. So basically today's session is a full upper body session, kind of like 4 sets of chest, 4 sets of back, a couple sets of arms, a couple sets of delts, and then my second upper body session for the week pretty much just mirrors that with a bias more towards back, starting first in the workout with chest later in the workout. So I'll show you guys this one. We're kicking off with a basically incline cable chest press, 2 sets, 6 to 8 reps. So you'll see how this one looks. It's a little heavy. I was thinking how to start that sentence. So a big point to note with this basically new training block, this resensitization phase, it's an opportunity to kind of use different exercises. So I've chosen or opted for exercises that I haven't used for a long period of time, which is an opportunity to kind of alleviate any joint or connective tissue issues. Something that I noticed getting really strong in my off season on a lot of my pressing, so dumbbell pressing and Smith pressing. Elbows started getting a bit stinky, shoulders, pecs started to get a bit funny as well. So opting for things like cable presses or any other machine-based variations that don't necessarily hammer the joints or connective tissues as much is a really nice way to kind of train, get a lot of effective stimulus to the muscles I'm trying to train, but alleviate a lot of the pressure and the pain that I might experience if I had continued those movements. Because I think arguably there's probably a handful of movements that are really good or really effective for hypertrophy, but you can't do them all the time, because if you're continually loading the same movement patterns, you get injured. So using this transition phase to kind of implement other exercises that still give good stimulus, that still are arguably effective for hypertrophy, it's just a nice break, and then we can transition back into those more robust movements for hypertrophy without too many issues kind of being the limiting factor, especially in prep where I guess recovery is hampered the deeper we get into prep as well. What do I want to say about moving into exercise 2, so another chest press variant. If we look at like movement patterns, or at least exercise variations, it will really dictate what movements we need to choose. And I think when we're looking at machine-based movements, there's like different tiers of machines. And I think arguably a lot of those hammer strength, like lever press machines, are pretty shit. But this one, we do have the benefit of it being converging. So it does take the pecs through that full contractile range. You do get that big, nasty, deep stretch with a lot of tension, and you do get that hard lockout where the handles converge at the top. So when we're looking at machine press variants, especially for things like chest and back, it does matter. So I really like those converging chest presses. But again, nothing crazy here. 2 working sets, 8 to 12, a little bit higher reps this time. And with the priority being strength for this block, we're doing the whole stack for this one. So we're not mucking around. Oh, that sucks already. Is 2 enough? Fuck. So exercise number 3, you're actually onto the back portion now. So I've got 2 sets of chin-ups and then onto 2 sets of dumbbell rows. So I haven't done chin-ups in forever, and I'm certainly the heaviest I've ever been. So 2 sets of 6 to 15, which is a pretty wide spread. So somewhere hopefully in that range. Will reckons I can do 11, so we'll see. Was that 12? One for good measure. I'm not going to be able to do another set now. Oh, well, that's fine. Ugh. I don't know if I'm ready for another set yet. That cooked me. Whoa. 7. Fuck. So we did chin-ups. Arguably the hardest exercise out of any exercise in the history of the world. Dumbbell rows. Single arm dumbbell rows. Not something that I use very often, but actually a pretty good exercise. I think the way I see most people do it, it's pretty ugly. You certainly don't need to like overreach and overstretch to the point that it's not even stretching your lats anymore. I'd argue being more locked in, keeping your torso pretty straight, and just allowing your arm to drop as far as it does without rotating any further would be better. And there's certainly no need to use momentum. So seeing all these like pro lifters with 100 kilo dumbbells fucking dancing around, swinging to move the weight 3 inches, like what are you doing? If you want to train your back, use a controlled range of motion, use a load that you can actually maintain tension throughout the entire range, And don't dick around, don't swing, don't use momentum because it directly violates the principle of hypertrophy. So, Sam raised a good point just now. Great point, Sam. About the way I'm training at the moment. So very like old school, like bro style stuff, single arm rows, chin-ups, squats, bench press, which is nothing inherently wrong with those movements. I think the more advanced you get, the more nuanced, the more details you need with your training to meet certain objectives. I think for most people who are like in their initial phases of training, the first probably few years, utilizing exercises that kind of have a broad stroke, so to speak, so train lots of muscles pretty damn effectively, is a great way to train. I certainly don't see any issues with it. It's more the fact that people have the wrong idea about those exercises. They think that because they're like barbell movements or dumbbell movements, they have to lift really heavy. And that's not the case. You still need to lift heavy enough, but heavy enough that you can still maintain your technique, have adequate execution and setup in order to train the muscles you're trying to train, because it does a really good job of that. So if you're trying to grow your back, for example, a couple of sets of chin-ups and a couple of sets of rows would be more than enough if you did it properly, because you would get tons of stimulus out of it, also very fatiguing, which means you don't need a lot. So when you do things well, it's a pretty nice scenario to set up a very well-designed training program, maybe 3, 4, max 5 days, where you don't need to do tons, but you just need to do it really well.
A couple of people over there kind of said the same thing. I think we're doing something right. I think it's working very well.
Here we go. All right, to finish this off, just basically some arm accessory work. So one of my favorite methods, I guess, for arm training, if you want to call it that, is just agonist antagonist superset. So choosing 2 different muscle groups, in the case of arms, bicep, triceps, and just doing the sets back to back. So tons of research on this, looking at the benefits of doing those exercises back to back. There's almost like I guess a potentiation effect where one helps the other. And there's really no drawbacks, as in training your biceps doesn't necessarily affect your biceps. So it's a good way of getting lots of training done in a short period of time if you're someone that's time poor. Doing those sort of supersets is really effective. Example, be like chest and back, bicep, tricep, you know, front delt, rear delt, or lateral delt, rear delt. Because you can basically just not even rest. Because by the time you sort of trained your biceps, your triceps are rested, and you can just kind of flip-flop, you know, maybe 2-3 work sets in the space that you would get maybe one straight set done. So super effective, you know, training strategy if you are time poor. So rear delts to finish. We had some face pulls, 1 working set. Like I said, very easy session, not too much volume. I think the total volume for this workout is like 12 working sets across the board. So the idea, you know, of reducing volume, resensitizing the volume, does give us the opportunity to prioritize load. So generally, this intro week is much lower, much higher reps in reserve. So about 3 to 4 RIR on most exercises. Over the course of this cycle, the progression is reduction in RIR down to probably 0, whilst managing to increase load probably each week over the next sort of 6 to 8 weeks potentially. So my objective is just to basically get strong over the next few weeks. And I think arguably RIR, or reps in reserve, is probably one of the biggest questions I get asked about training and how to manage it, or what the hell it even means. So generally speaking, within say a 6-week training block, the first week or your intro week will typically be lower effort, so generally 3 to 4 RIR. As you progress through that training cycle, your reps in reserve will get lower, so closer to failure. The closer you get to the end of the training block, typically with 1 overloading week where you go to a 0 RIR or failure, and then you may have a deload, or you may just roll into the next training block where the intro week at 3 to 4 RIR acts as a deload anyway. So pretty simple way to set up your training, pretty much how I lay out all my clients' training to ensure that they are progressively increasing the intensity and or load throughout the course of a training cycle. But that's it for us. Upper body session 2 for the week done. Go do all that fun YouTube stuff, like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys probably next week for a lower body session.